Remember, knowledge, it ain't free. You gotta pay attention and don't believe the hype.
For over 150 years, the Kentucky Derby has stood as the most enduring tradition in American sports. And in our time, one stallion is reshaping its legacy. Back-to-back Derby winners. His first son at stud siring another. A dynasty in motion. A motion that again has forward momentum toward Louisville, with another elite crop of 3-year-olds bearing his genes. Spendthrift Farm, home of Into Mischief.
They're off in the Kentucky Derby.
For some, they say it's the most exciting 2 minutes in sports. For us, it's about potential financial opportunities. Never bring a knife to a gunfight, and make no mistake, big money is up for grabs, and this is a fight. Never settle for second best. The Past the Wire annual Kentucky Derby seminar. Nobody does it better. Preparation is key. Be better prepared, delve deeper, stealth. They won't see us coming and they won't know we're there. Money management, ticket structure, pace, all the intangibles, thoroughgraph, everything that matters to make it count, to have that edge. In the end, if things go as planned, it'll be like we stole the money. There's a lot of ways to handicap a horse race and a lot of ways to bet on it. But nobody that I know does it like Geo Sette and his full card, precise order handicap. Every horse in the race gets a predicted order of finish like only Geo can do, way beyond a deep dive, available exclusively on select days at Past the Wire. This is important, so you're going to want to remember it. If you're a cat and you want to become a lion, you're going to have to lose your taste for rats.
Hey, Sure Bet Coffee. Put that giddy up in your cup. That giddy up in your cup. Sure Bet Coffee.
What's going on there, everybody? Mr. Sette, Past the Wire TV. Welcome you again. I'm delighted that you're here with me. And I'm excited to talk about the $500,000 Virginia Derby. It's pretty cool that they put this race together as one of the Kentucky Derby preps, awarded points, and big purse, $500,000. Thumbs up to Colonial Downs. And with that said, by the way, I do hope everybody and your families are doing well and you're ready to listen up, absorb the deep dive. What I'm going to do, I'm going to take the entire field down from post position order, from the rail all the way to the bottom horse. I'm going to give you thoughts on each one. And of course, at the conclusion, you'll be hearing, my feeling towards each horse, but I'm going to give you my precise order of finish. And, one thing to keep in mind, because of the issue I had with Sette Better Days on my Twitter X, if you see on the screen, this is Geo Sette at FTTFGeoS7, which is focused to the finish. Geo Sette 7. So if you're not following me yet, go on there and follow me. So, I got to catch up with a lot of people that I lost because my other page was hijacked. I'm still working on that investigation. Anyway, with the task at hand, a little about Colonial Downs, first things first. One thing that's essentially important as a handicapper, you have to always recognize, especially when you're looking at this level, these are 3-year-olds going a mile and an eighth, and, many have raced as a juvenile, some have not. But my point I'm making, you always have to consider each horse's campaign. And when you have something like this that's unique, every one of these horses, through and through, they're all making their first start at Colonial Downs. They haven't worked there and they haven't raced there. So that's something that's essentially important to keep in mind. And one of the other things, and it's funny how some industry cappers, I just took some notice of some things online. By default, they should know if they're working with a 9-furlong race at Colonial Downs, it's a 1-turn event. And that's really important to begin your process. Now, sure, they may know, but they should talk about it. All right. So we're working on a $500,000 Virginia Derby, a mile and an eighth, 9 furlongs, 1 turn. All right. So, and by the way, at the conclusion of this, if there's anything that you feel like you want to question, please go on to the comments, ask a question, give me a thought, and let me know who you ultimately came up with in this race, who you landed on and who you had a strong feeling as a contender. Okay, let me get a sip of my aquafresh. So I'm always intrigued with a big race. And by the way, I won't be doing a full card handicap on this, but in the comments of this particular presentation, I probably will share my Oaks or an additional thought so you could connect this race with a couple of others in the comments. All right. But there won't be a full card opportunity with this card. My schedule didn't call for it. All right. So we do have 1 scratch. So the field is a field of 9. All right. And we're going to go through each horse. And I'll tell you the truth, I dug down deep and I uncovered a lot of things. All right. And some things are really important to discuss, and some things are, pretty obvious. So if you're capping, you'll recognize them. Okay. But remember that. Remember the fact that you have all these guys, these colts and these horses starting at Colonial Downs, making the trip. You have to consider their campaign. And that was the foundation of my handicap. And as I went through race review and all. All right. So the number 1 is calling card. Okay. First things first, you got Luan Machado, new rider who's new on him. So that's interesting because Luan Machado, did a lot of racing over at Turfway Park on a synthetic, and he's got a name for himself already in Kentucky, but here he is getting the mount on the 1 horse. Now they're coming right back with this guy 2 weeks later from his last race on March 1st. I gave him an excuse in race review, 2 back in a slop over at Fairgrounds, where he was a well-beaten horse that day. But, Disco Time and Built ran big, and Innovator was a load in that's the grade 3 LeCompte. But I gave him an excuse there. But his last race going into New York, the Gotham, you know what? I tried to find an excuse. He was a little wide, but he failed. He failed that day. So with calling card, even though I kind of like the rider change, one thing about Mike Maker, you never know because he's such a seasoned trainer. And he makes moves. But this is a New York bred. The jockey changes again. If you look at this guy's body of work, he went from Gaffleon to Dylan Davis to Joao Rosario to Vasquez to Dettori to Carmouche, now to Machado. So every one of this guy's races has had a different jockey on. So, but in this field, and I tried to find an excuse for his last. He just was a major disappointment in his last at Aqueduct and the Gotham. So he needs to show me, and he needs to run faster. I did take note that he did have a workout over the synthetic at Turfway Park, and it is Mike Maker. But in this field of 9, I can't support Colin Card. All right, for those reasons. Number 2 is John Hancock. Let's put a scratch. It would have been very intriguing if John Hancock was running in this race, because I was very impressed with his effort at Tampa. But he is going to another pasture, not going to Colonial Downs. You'll see him over, I believe it's the Louisiana Derby, and we'll discuss that when we get to that day, okay? Number 3 is American Promise, okay? Now, American Promise, $750,000 son of Justify. I took a real hard look at his works, and I watched his works. They're okay, but I wasn't overly impressed with them. This guy has some tactical speed ability, which I gave a strong indication in my while I was going through my process. Nick Juarez is up. He's a pretty capable rider. I know a lot about Nick Juarez from, his many seasons at Monmouth Park down the Jersey Shore here. So Nick Juarez is new. It's for the coach, Dwayne Lucas. It's his 3rd start as a 3-year-old. The mud at Oaklawn, that race opened my eyes, but it was in the mud. But he ran a big number, 95 buyer, and he showed really strong speed, and he was well bet that day. So when I see a horse perform like that, I always say that doesn't happen by mistake. But remember, it was in the mud. So that's something to consider. And even though I feel like this horse is capable, and he will likely improve off of his last 2, because in my opinion, they were stronger fields. 2 back in the Southwest. He's off the board to Speed King, Sandman, and Tistastic. And of course, we all saw the Risen Star, which is a grade 2, and we saw what Magnitude did that day. I thought he was just overmatched. So in this race, I feel he may improve, and he did open my eyes with that effort, in the mud, running that big number. But I don't know if he's going to be good enough to win here. So I'm going to use the 3 in my bottom gimmicks, mostly in my bottom superfectas. You'll see where he lands in my full, precise order finish. That's American Promise. Number 4 is Omaha. Love the name. Interesting horse. Raul Mina is back up. This is consistency here, horse and rider. Every one of his mounts has been Mina. All right. The barn I trust. It's an improving colt. Methodically improving. I like to see that. I like to see a horse moving forward. I watched all of his races. Interestingly enough, let me go to my notes. It's his 3rd race at 3. So that progression I like. He's getting bigger. He's getting stronger. He's going to be a presence probably later in the race, closing into what I feel will be a moderate to fast pace. So by default, that's going to give him a puncher's chance if he improves to run one of his better races, especially if he improves to another level. Okay. Son of Audible out of a Kitten's Joy mare. Now, know a lot about, is this the Kitten's Joy mare? No, wait, hold on. Ashbed. Let me make sure I got my notes in line. Yeah, Kitten's Joy mare. Now, obviously, Kitten's Joy, you think the lawn, you think turf, and you think distance. Coincidentally, think about this horse's campaign. Begins his career at Delaware. So you don't see many horses go Delaware, Laurel, Aqueduct, Colonial Downs, and debuted on the lawn, probably because of that, strong Kitten's Joy presence in the pedigree. So I do believe that this horse wants to go longer, as demonstrated at all the career starts. 7.5 furlongs on the lawn, a mile 2 times over at Delaware, stretching out at Laurel, back to a mile at Aqueduct, and then last race in the Withers, a 1.125 at Aqueduct. Now, coincidentally, a Virginia bred. So now the horse is going back to his state, open company, of course, for the Virginia Derby. I look at him as a threat in a stretch. I wouldn't be surprised if the horse demonstrates a strong closing punch. He made my handicap, but others on the board are more appealing. But like I said, never totally dismiss a horse that's showing a methodical improvement, speed rating wise, ability wise. And like I said, ultimately, I'm not sure this guy belongs on the soil. Maybe better off on the turf. I'm going to follow him later on. But, somewhat of a subpar contender, because he could close well here and hit the board, especially in your superfectas and triples. But there are a few horses who are more appealing to me, and I will demonstrate that as I go along. Okay? Number 5 is Studley Do Right. Now, I know a lot about this horse. Give you some details of my findings with Studley Do Right. One of them is glaring and obvious. The blinkers are coming off. Now, I trust the barn, all right, John Robb, and I like that Perez, just like in Omaha with Mina, Perez continues to mount this horse. But what's most interesting about Studley Do Right, okay, let's talk a little about that. I'm glancing at my notes because I want to give you some of my findings, and then I'll, expand on it. Obviously, coming off the synthetic at Turfway Park. Now, that night, I bet him. I actually bet this horse a few times, and he disappointed me. He didn't get the money I thought he was going to get, even though he looked pretty good over the track. But, in that race, the John Battaglia, he just didn't have it. He didn't fire. So I'm going to give him a pass on that because it was a synthetic in the evening over at Turfway Park. This is a son of Nyquist. Everybody that's watching the show should be familiar with Nyquist and his, his success. I like that it's his third start at 3, and he's the most experienced colt in this race. But more importantly, if you think about this guy's success as a juvenile, you don't see it often where a horse is greatly successful as a juvenile. There's so much promise, but for whatever reason, and there are a myriad of reasons here, why the horse doesn't run as well as a 3-year-old. But make no mistakes, those races as a juvenile, and he's got a big one, which we'll talk about later on in the year, puts him squarely in the mix with his number, with his bias speed rating. But think about the campaign for this guy. Debuts at Laurel in a slop, runs huge. From Laurel to Saratoga in the Tremont, runs huge, gets paid for all of his backers, 13-1, overlay that day. So now he's 2 for 2. They ambitiously say, you know what, we got a horse here. And they kept him at Saratoga, and he goes back-to-back stakes races in the Sanford Grade 3 and Hopeful. Obviously, Sanford, he ran well. He was favored, and he hit the board. He was in the exacta. But the Hopeful, major disappointment. Who's in that race, but Chance of McPatrick, ferocious. That sort of was a race that, even though they kept running him, he was going, I still felt he was progressing. He just didn't have it that day, which was demonstrated in his next two, winning at Laurel and coming back to New York and running a big number in the Nashua, being a pretty good field. So what's happened to him since? Sometimes a horse just needs to be refreshed. The two races at the Big A, and we talked about a horse and his race over at Turfway Park. There's an ingredient of ability I've seen in this horse, especially where I have no reservations about the distance. I know he's good for the 1 1/8, especially a one-turn 1 1/8. But coming off the synthetic, entered in this race, his works don't have to be very fast. Blinkers off. I trust the barn. I see Studley Do Right falling under the radar here and returning to make his presence felt in the stretch. He shouldn't be too far off the pace, too. The rider knows the horse. He's dangerous. He's dangerous. He made my handicap, and you'll know where he is in my precise order. But if you're playing at pick 3, 8, or pick 5, or pick 4, anything forward, I think you need to consider this horse, because if you consider his complete body of work and his campaign, this looks like a spot where he should get back to running more effectively, especially in this particular field, with every horse needing to adapt to the soil at Colonial Downs. All right, let's turn the page to the 6 Getaway Car. Now, Getaway Car is the horse that's in the news that has the most significant body of work, has run with significantly better horses. Make no mistakes. We know that. But let's talk about my findings here, okay? And just to rehash, Getaway Car, of course, is from the well-recognized Bob Baffert stable. But think about this, all right? We know the horses that Bob's got in his stable, all right? We know what they've already achieved in terms of 3-year-olds. He likes this horse, but I don't think this is his top gun. Maybe it's one of the reasons why he chose to be in this race for the, and it's a big purse, but for the Virginia Derby. Now, let's talk about Getaway Car's path. Obviously, he's a Curlin. I don't have, on paper, I don't have reservations about the distance. However, with this guy in race review, I have somewhat of a reservation. Now, one turn here, and the fact that they scratched out John Hancock, that makes it more interesting and compelling for Getaway Car to run his race. did I say Getaway Car before or Gateway Car? I'm sorry. It's Getaway Car, of course. But above all, how about this change? JJ Hernandez, who was his only rider, not in attendance, not racing or riding this guy at Colonial Downs. It's IRAD. Now, obviously, you don't lose anything with IRAD, but it's the continuity of jockey and horse. In my opinion, if there was a significant, we got a big time runner here, we're going to grab this purse, maybe JJ Hernandez makes the trip here and rides this horse. IRAD, you don't lose anything because we know IRAD's brilliance and the value he adds to a horse. But in this case, you're not getting added value in terms of pari-mutually, you're getting value in terms of his ability. So IRAD for Bob, by default, you're going to get a shorter price, probably an accurate price, maybe a bit of an underlay. It's his second race at 3, which I like. I wish this was his third race at 3, but it's his second race at 3. He's undoubtedly the most proven, fastest horse in the race from a buyer speed rating perspective, in my opinion. The consistency of it. Remember, he's going at one turn here, 9 furlongs, which there's an asterisk. And of course, like they all are, he's trying and starting on the Colonial Downs soil for the first time. But here's a couple of other indications that I think are very important to consider. All right? Consistency, he's there. He's 5 for 7 in exactas. You know he's going to be bet at the window. I'm estimating, let's see, the morning line, because this printout's got the morning lines. The morning line's 9 to 5. He's likely going to be even money or 6 to 5 because of the presence of IRAD. I hope that happens because ultimately I feel like Getaway Car is vulnerable here. And here's why. All right. Think about the few races under his belt where he weakened some. He's shown almost like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. In race review, he weakened a few times where I felt like he shouldn't have. And then other times he showed fight. And his last was amazing. That duel with, what's the name of the horse? Caldera. That was a fight to the finish. But now, did that race take something out of him? Compelling to think so. But here's something that really opened my eyes. He's going 9 furlongs for the first time. It's the longest he's ever gone. I know he's a crone, but the fact that he's yielded or weakened a few times, and he's coming off of that gut-wrenching race at Sunland Park in the Sunland Derby, just getting up by that nostril, it could be a spot where he's vulnerable, where he shows speed, he gets early challenges, and he doesn't have enough in the final 8th. And here's why I think that's entirely possible. All right? Look at his works. That race, the Sunland Derby, was February 16th. Look at the 2 works over at Santa Anita before they shipped them to Colonial. His last 36-3 Hanley, and the one prior to that on March 3rd, 4 furlongs and 50-1. If you know one thing about Bob Baffert, especially horses that are racing in a long race, he runs in guns, and you see a lot of workouts. If they're going 6, they're going 6 in 111 or 112. And if they're going 5 in the breeze, they're breezing in 5 in a minute flat, maybe even 59 and change. So I said to myself, why going 3 furlongs in a work and 4 furlongs in a work? And they were, nothing to write home about. They're not very fast. it gives me the impression that in this race between getting shipped over to Colonial Downs and there's other speed in the race, which I will talk about from a pace perspective, and the fact that he's got to go longer than he's ever gone, mile and an eighth, and the fact that he's shown two sides of the fence. He's shown that fighting ability like he did in his last, which could have took something out of him, and he's weakened a few times where it felt like he shouldn't have. So contender by default because it's IRAD for Bob. He made my handicap, but he's not on top. And you'll see why when I give you my precise order. Should you use him if you played at pick 3 or pick 5? You got to go with your feeling. I may make a business decision and not. But if I was going to use him, if I was going to go 3 deep, I'd probably use him. Okay? So that's Getaway Car. Sorry again if I said Gateway Car before. Gabish, you got a lot. You take some notes there. All right, let's go to the number 7, Rapture. Rapture, another interesting horse that's going to be getting a lot of coin at the window for the obvious reasons. Flavien Prat up for Brad Cox. Hold on, a little sip of Aqua Frisch. Now, I didn't have to study as much because this guy, 3-year-old, son of Uncle Mo, ran once late in his juvenile campaign at Gulfstream Park at a mile, raced well, got all the money, was wide, but showed that he could be a racehorse. He didn't win, but he ran a pretty good race in a decent field. Not overwhelming, but a decent maiden special field. What opens everybody's eyes, and I'll tell you my evaluation of his last race, was his second race. So he's got 2 races here. And remember, Pratt, who is the rider for John Hancock, who undoubtedly will ride John Hancock going forward, by default with John Hancock scratching, he's on Rapture. So obviously, because I feel Flavien Prat is a brilliant rider who makes many quality split-second decisions, and the fact that this horse has tactical speed and should be a pace factor, it's nice to have Flavien Prat as your rider. But no doubt in my mind, because it's Prat for Cox, you're going to pay a Flavien Prat tax on him, and you're not going to get the value mutually on the board as you should with this horse. Now, in his last, that 82 buyer, especially breaking from an outside post in his second start and winning, drawing off like he did, obviously was impressive. So, with that, you'd say if he makes a step forward, by default in this field, he's a contender. And I would understand why someone played him. But in my trained eye opinion, and something, if he ends up beating me and being a super horse, then that's just something I have to accept. But in the race, where he got all the money in his last, and he drew off like he did, winning by open lengths, I wasn't crazy about that field. And remember, he's going from maiden special weight to the Virginia Derby. Now, Cox pulled it off with John Hancock going from a maiden special weight to the Sam F. Davis and winning with Pratt. Easier said than done. It could happen. But for me, the way I see Rapture, I need him to prove to me that he's ready for stakes competition. And remember, experience is immeasurable. Like experience with so many of the others, the horses I've already discussed and some that I'm going to discuss further, and now racing on a new oval at Colonial Downs. It's very instrumental. So if this son of Uncle Mo, and by the way, it's a Bernardini out of a Bernardini dam. I don't know about the distance. One turn, yeah, but I'm not completely sold that this horse wants 9 furlongs. And how much effort did his last take out of him? So when I was completing my handicap, I said, nice looking horse, but I got to like Bob's horse more than him. So to be honest with you, if this horse beats me in terms of winning, I'm going to lose. I wanted to give you a lot to think about with this guy. Can he hit the board in triples and superfectas? Yeah, but that's as far as I'm going to go. And you're not going to get value on the board. Listen, he's listed at 5-1. I'd be shocked if he's anything more than 5-2 in this field because of the presence of Pratt for Cox, and, they're trying to pull off what they did with John Hancock. And it's not easy to do every time. Maiden special and you win a $500,000 race. Let's move on to the 8, Authentic Gallop. Now, Authentic Gallop, for many reasons, really intrigued me. And you'll know my precise order in them, but this is a horse I am undoubtedly going to use. And I landed him as my top choice in this field. Now, remember, I spoke a lot about Studley Do-Right as well. And you'll know at the end of this conversation, as I deep dive the rest of the horses, who I'm likely to use going forward and how I'm going to, approach the race entirely. But this guy really, really opened my eyes for different reasons, especially considering the necessity of experience and the fact that every one of these guys is getting to Colonial Downs for the first time. So let's talk about Authentic Gallop and his path, okay? So $300,000 son of Authentic. We know about Authentic's success and, out of a Victory Gallop mare. So success was inevitable for this guy. If you look at his path, begins his career at Saratoga, sprinting, races well, takes some money, doesn't have much in a stretch. It can happen as a juvenile. But then stretching out on the lawn at Saratoga, just gets beat. If I could remember that day, I had him that day, but nailed. But moving forward to race at Keeneland again on the lawn, then bringing him from Keeneland to Churchill Downs, I didn't think that was the right race for him at that time. Then it was time for him to graduate. And he broke his maiden at Oaklawn Park at a nice price. And look who he beat that day, Caldera. Caldera, who went tooth and nail through the stretch with Getaway Car in the Sunland Derby. So this guy beats Caldera, who was dynamic that day, tooth and nail through the stretch with Getaway Car. That's who he graduated against. So they move him up into the optional claimer for $100,000, beaten by Admiral Dennis, another horse who's shown some good success early on in his career. But that wasn't the race that really opened my eyes. The race that opened my eyes was his last at Oaklawn Park. And, I implore you to watch this race because I like seeing a race like this to, understand a horse's not only his campaign and body of work leading to the race, but showing you a little about what the horse is made out of. Okay. So he comes off that race winning, a nice purse, $150,000 optional claimer at Oaklawn Park. Let me go over some of my notes here. Okay. If you watch him patiently, and a great ride by Raphael that day, and I have no problem in going to Castellano. We're going to discuss the jockey change to Castellano here. But if a horse was going to fold or be defeated, it would have been this horse. Not only did he split the horses, but he had another gear deep in the stretch to emerge victorious. And the fact that it was between those two guys, like I said, after you watch my show, go ahead and watch the race. It really was impressive for a horse making his second start at 3. So now this is his third start at 3. Another jockey change to Javier Castellano. And with Castellano, you don't lose anything. You gain a wealth of experience and a jockey that knows how to position his horse down the lane for his very best run. So above all, this horse is also tactical. He's going to show tactical ability. So you're combining a horse that shows some fight in a stretch, that you have no reservations with the distance on both ends of his pedigree. The confidence he exhibited, and the fact that now you're going to get Castellano, which I'm taking nothing away from the ride he had last time, which was special. But Castellano is new. For Tom Amos, a trainer who I admire his work, wins a lot of races like this, belongs in races like this, training well. Not only did I list him as a major contender in the race, but he became my top choice. And it's because if he goes forward, or if there is another opportunity in the stretch, and if others falter, like Getaway Car and Rapture, for the reasons I spoke about, this 8, I wouldn't be surprised if the 8 won. Horse is 10-1, the morning line. Now, in my blood and bones, do I feel he will be 10-1? No. I think others, not only who are watching the show, but in the industry, will recognize that this horse has some capability. And his last race, the sun's in my face, the last race was really special. And I think he steps forward and improves off of that race and is spotted well here. Now, does he have to take to the soil over at Colonial Downs? Sure, they all have to. But think of this. Saratoga on the lawn, Keeneland on the lawn, Churchill Down, Oaklawn Park, Fairgrounds, Oaklawn Park. This guy has traveled well, and he's been consistent and reliable. He's making his first start since September 7th. I like that period of time, and I like his works. His works are sharp. This horse is fit. If I get a good ride from Castellano, I would never leave this guy off your tickets. I'm thinking about a superfecta key using him. And like I said, I'm not, you know what? If Bob's horse or Rapture, they run a big race and I lose, then I go down fighting. But I tell you the truth, I think both those horses are going to take a lot of money, both be underlays in my eyes. And, Bob's horse ran with a lot of significantly better horses. But for the reasons I spoke about, he's vulnerable. And Rapture just needs to prove something to me that he's ready for this competition. And you're going to have a very short price on him as well. And by the way, I'm not really worried about price. If I thought that horse was a killer and I was impressed with the fields and I felt like he would go forward again and I didn't think much of the others, then I wouldn't worry about a short price. I'd be bearing down and betting him strong. You know me. It's who I land on. If I love a horse that's 6-5, then that's who I'm with. If I love a horse that's 10-1, 14-1, that's who I'm in. All in with. If I need to use 2 horses, they could be 2 prices that are double digits. That's who I'm using. And I'll short the favorites. And if I like the 2 horses who are going to get all the money, then that's who I'm going to use, and I'm going to short the others. Let's move on to the 9, Render Judgment. This was another compelling read only because of the connections. And when I say about compelling read, that means I study each one of the races. I want to find something that could be missed by the public. All right. And that's what I found in a lot of ways from a talent perspective, Authentic Gallop and Studley Do Right. Because those 2 horses will fall under the radar here, but there's talent there. And they could no doubt win a race like this over a new surface, going 9 furlongs, 1 turn against some vulnerable horses who are going to take a lot of money. All right, Render Judgment. Gallop, BJ Hernandez up for Ken McPeak. We know their story, and I like the continuity of jockey and racehorse continuing on. Horses getting a mask here. They're throwing blinkers on them. All right. My trained eyes say that the horse gets an excuse in his last. He did not like the fairground surface. And he had 2 races at the fairgrounds. $310,000 Son of Blame out of a commissioner mare. I think blinkers on is a good move. Look at the journey this horse had. Began his career at Keeneland in the fall. Ran a nice race at a big number at 40-1. Dismissed at the window. Second. Wins his next out. Graduates. Okay. Defeating American Promise, who's in this race. The 3-horse. Then they ambitiously entered the horse in the grade 2 over at Churchill Downs. First resort, Jonathan's Way, overmatched that day. Too much of a climb, maiden special to grade 2, off the board. Comes back at fairgrounds, runs the Gunrunner and Risen Star. In my opinion, did not take to the fairgrounds surface. So I don't have reservations about the distance. I trust BJ Hernandez. Always trust Ken McPeak. Do I think Render Judgment will improve if he takes to Colonial Downs with blinkers on now? The answer is yes. So what do you do with this horse? You can't hug all the boys and you can't kiss all the girls. Because the others are more appealing, if I'm going to use the 9 will be used in deeper gimmicks because I feel like BJ Hernandez will not quit with the horse and the horse should improve. Does he need to improve substantially because I feel the others? Yeah. So in the Geo Sette precise order, he's well down, but I couldn't completely dismiss him from hitting the board. I will not use him on the win end because my top 3 are more appealing. And like I said, you guys are going to wait for the precise order, but I want to elaborate as much as I can for each horse so you know my mythology and my logic that went along with my handicap. And do I think this horse for future use? Yeah, he's not done winning. Nice looking colt. Remember that. All right, let's go to the bottom. Oh, one more thing about Render Judgment. I mentioned that I didn't think he took to the fairgrounds, and I felt like this field was more of a race. Doing the one turn, 9 furlongs. It was more of a race for him to show improvement, and if he takes to the Colonial Downs surface, he will. All right, finally, the 10, which is the bottom horse, Georgia Magic. I can be somewhat brief with this horse, but I'm going to add some other intangibles. I will not be using this horse, but I was intrigued with one thing, and you'll see that it probably will be displayed over the track. Interesting that Sheldon Russell is riding this guy. So another jockey change, this time to Sheldon Russell. Son of Good Magic. Now, Good Magic has been a great sire, and this horse only has 3 horses in his career. Raced as a juvenile. Mr. Sette likes that. His juvenile race was sharp. He got an off track at Aqueduct and ran the field down. Didn't run an impressive buyer, but maiden special. Won with Dylan Davis. Took all the money. That's good. Second race, however, early January. So obviously you can't get much sooner than January 4th unless you ran on New Year's Day. His first race is a 3-year-old, little wide, showed some, a little gate speed early on, but folded. Now, he lost to good horses that day, Cycling State and Omaha, who's in this race. So Mr. Sette gave that horse a pass that day because he went from maiden special to Jerome. Remember, hear me talking about it. Listen, you got to be really special to win on debut, get ambitiously placed in a stakes race, and then beat the field that you're facing because you're going against winners and it's a stakes race. Race 3, however, was concerning to me because the horse should have improved. He didn't have a good start. Again, it was an off track, sprinting, optional claim 100,000. Here's the thing. Not much of an excuse in a small 5-horse field. So he should have improved. So because this horse is the son of Good Magic, I still think he's got a career and he will improve. And what was compelling this race from the outside post, the 10 horse, but because the 2 is scratched, will be a little further in. I think this guy around the first turn is going to be tactically sound and is going to be part of the pace. That's what they got to do. And Sheldon Russell knows that. See, they're going to run and gun this guy. And I feel he has the ability to do so. So sometimes when a horse goes to a new racetrack and he is up on the pace, and if the pace isn't lightning fast, he could stick around longer. But I think the 10 in this race, I don't like him and I'm not using him. I think he's going to be an issue for Bob's horse, Getaway Car, Rapture as well. Is he as fast as those horses? No. But are they going to run and gun him from the outside post in this race? I think that's got to be the game plan. And remember, he is a Good Magic, stretching out, going 1.1 miles now. Depends how the others perform. I think he's going to contribute to what will be a moderate to fast pace. And if that happens, the picture I'm painting is that the one horse, actually 2 horses, that are going to benefit from that the most will be the 8 Authentic Gallop with Castellano, for all the reasons I shared, because that horse is also swift will be around up close around the first turn. But if I got into Castellano's head, and his experience would be paramount, if the 10 gets out, Bob's horse gets out, and Rapture gets out, Authentic will be close enough. Now, by the way, Castellano's no dummy. If the 8 has the opportunity to have the lead around the first turn or be a stalking present second, he will. I just like the opportunity that sits in front of him, the versatility and the decision-making, and the fact that that horse proved to me that he's willing to be eyeballed and still keep running, which is important stuff. In his last, he could have folded. He could have just been beaten. Oh, they passed me left and right. I'm surrounded. He didn't. That's fight. So this race became very compelling. And that's why, for all the reasons I spoke about with every horse, and if you took notes and you could ask some questions, the Geo Sette precise order of finish, which sometimes is difficult, especially when you have many compelling angles like this is. I come up with 8, 5, 6, 7, 4, 3, 9. 8, 5, 6, 7, 4, 3, 9. Now, the 7, 4, 3, 9 are going to be used exclusively in my bottom gimmicks, superfectas or triples in terms of a key. I may play some side superfectas straight because, the mentioned ability. But 8, 5, 6, my top 2, Authentic Gallop and Stud We Do Right with Bob's horse, that's going to be my focus in terms of triples and exactas, and my pick 3 or pick 5. I may even make a game time decision for all the reasons I shared, where I only use 2 in my pick 5, especially my main pick 5. But I'm playing the 8 to win. I'm playing a strong exacta with Stud We Do Right. But I feel Stud We Do Right can win this race. So I'm using Stud We over the 8. And then I got to decide, for you guys that bet triple boxes, if that's your thing and you're sold on Bob, on Flavian Pratt, I just gave you the 2 horses that you got to use in your triples with them and in your box, if that's how you play. All right? So there you have it. The Geo Sette Virginia Derby. Colonial Downs is the showcase. Remember, Colonial Downs, this meet right now in March, it's 3 days. You got to know something about the track. That's why for those out there that, I can't remember the show, and I don't want to say anything bad, but for them not to talk about this being a one-turn, 9-furlong event, the magnitude of it, Kentucky Derby points, it's something you got to do. You got to talk about that. This is a race that's interesting, and there could be a lot of value here. And like I said, if I get beat by Cox's horse, then I'll tip my hat and I'll say, okay, he's a real runner. I just need to see it. He's got to prove it to me. And that's how I face it. And if he wins, Geo Sette loses. All right. There's the handicap, your questions or thoughts, and who you like. I'd like to know. Go ahead. If you want to write in the comments, you want to say, Geo, look, interesting stuff, but I'm not getting past Bob's horse, or I'm not getting past Cox's horse. Hey, much respect. I understand. A few announcements. All right? Going forward, good stuff. First things first, on Twitter, remember the new handle. And if I get Sette Better Days back, then you'll know about it. I had like 1,900 people, and I got to somehow re-engage my contact relationship, but I'm locked out of it for things beyond my control. So right there on the screen, FTTF Geo S. Sette. Focus to the finish, Geo Sette 7. It's right there. Follow me so you don't miss on things. My email address, focus to the finish @gmail.com. Many of you are on my distribution list. If you're interested, let me know in the comments. Announcements. First things first, you'll see a commercial up there for John Stetton's Kentucky Derby seminar. Guys, listen, you're not going to find somebody more in-depth, more qualified to give you a Kentucky Derby seminar, giving you a rundown on all 20 horses and taking care of what's much needed, the undercard races, part of the seminar, than John Stetton. So I highly recommend, and it's always been popular for a number of years now, that's John's seminar. I won't be a part of that, but I highly recommend that you're with John for the Kentucky Derby seminar. Now, on the calendar, which I shared on Twitter today, or x.com, the Geo Sette Precise Order Handicap. Here's the path. None this week. On March 22nd, by the way, is my daughter Samantha's birthday. I love her so much. God bless her. Graduate of Duke. She lives in North Carolina. That's my daughter's birthday. So I'm going to play that day, and I'm going to have that good karma of my daughter's birthday being March 22nd. But if you've been in my corner for the full card precise handicaps, we've been on quite a roll. And I say that with proudness because I put a lot of work into things. And, you know, let's continue the momentum. So on March 22nd is the Fairgrounds full card handicap on Past the Wire, which includes the Louisiana Derby. On March 29th, a week later, is the full card precise handicap at Gulfstream Park, which is inclusive with the Florida Derby. And then something really cool to mark your calendars with. On April 5th, the week after that, the Geo Sette, it's not one individual full card. I am providing the Bluegrass at Keeneland, the Wood Memorial at the Big A, and the Santa Anita Derby from Santa Anita, the all stakes pick 3 from each one of those tracks. So the full card handicap has an asterisk on the 5th. It's going to cover 3 tracks, not the full cards. 3 races at Aqueduct, Wood Memorial Day inclusive. 3 races at Keeneland with the Bluegrass Stakes inclusive. And 3 races at Santa Anita, the connecting races, which make the pick 3s. So that handicap will be 9 races, all stakes, 3 races from 3 tracks. Doesn't that sound pretty cool? April 5th. There you have it. I gave you a lot to absorb. I want to thank you for your continued fellowship and for being a part of Past the Wire TV. If you haven't yet, subscribe. It's free. You'll get all notifications for everything that we put up. We appreciate that you like it. Anybody with a channel appreciates that, and referring it to others, posting this to your social media. Win, lose, or draw, you're getting a wealth of information. You know, I've spoken to so many people over recent years. All right, you make the call. Is the information that I share all year round on Past the Wire TV valuable to you? Can't win every race, but win, lose, or draw, you're getting a wealth of information. And by coincidence, my win percentage is kind of ridiculous. You know, I win a lot of races because, you know what? I put an awful lot of work into it. I deep dive. I live alone now. My kids I put through college. I watch more race review and workout reviews than anybody probably in the industry. And I really mean this. I watch a lot of races, do a lot of film study. And, 4 decades plus of experience handicapping thoroughbreds comes into play. That's why when we do shows on Past the Wire TV and I give you my thoughts, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, often enough, especially those that have followed us for many years, the success that we have collectively had on this channel. And we have a great staff here. But just wanted to throw that out there, okay? All right, well, thank you again. Thanks for being a part of this show. Let me know who you like. And look in the comments because I may add the oaks, my precise oaks. I'm going to approach this weekend a little differently. Remember, if I handicap the whole card, then I'm betting all the races I handicap because you never let a quality handicap go uncashed. Of course, you change your nominal amounts. We all don't have an endless supply of money. But when I handicap a full card, I bet every race. I just choose how much I'm betting in each race, and structuring your tickets is crazy important. So by watching all the guys here at Past the Wire, John, Big Race Jim, Charles, et cetera, Eddie, everybody, we're seasoned in our ways. You'll absorb and gather pearls from all of us, okay? All right, that's it. Thank you for being a part of Past the Wire TV, and I hope to see you real soon. And let's go get him!
Himself, Frankie Dettori. Ciao, Frankie. Tutto a posto.
Tutto a posto. Yes, that's a good start. So you haven't lost your Italian.
You're watching Past the Wire TV, presented by Am Wager.
Tracking trips at Past the Wire. There is no better time than now to join and ride with this clan. We'll be your second set of expert trained eyes. We ain't gonna buy you a fish. Sure, we'll give you some, but more importantly, we'll show you how to fish and make you a better better. CAWs, sharks in the water, no problem. We'll go against anybody, and we have the track record to prove it. Big days, big pools, and select days all year long. We'll outplay them all. Looking for an ace? You're in the right place. Want to find that diamond? Be with us. Want to know more? Just ask a member or visit us at pastthewire.com and check out the Tracking Trips page. Nobody does it better.
And here's Tama in the final stages. The Santa Anita Derby goes to Tama. It's Tama, absolutely terrific, winning Malibu by 4 widening lengths.
Past the Wire TV, your #1 source for horse racing news and interviews, handicapping analysis, betting insights, and more. Past the Wire TV covers the biggest races at the best tracks.
Garnet and Luis Saez to win the Belmont Stakes at Saratoga.
The Grey Wizard is absolutely flying. Champagne won. The Grey Wizard. Oh, it's very close. Leave it to the judge.
Like, share, and subscribe to Past the Wire TV. Nobody does it better.
Blood. That makes you related. Loyalty. That makes you family. Nobody does it better.